The whisper in the desert. The twin suns burned high in the alien sky as Jason walked through the dust-filled streets of Corin City, deep in the desert lands of planet Zarkai. He was just a traveler, a human man, alone in a world not his own. People stared at him as he passed. Some looked curious, some looked afraid, and some whispered behind their hands, "Why is he here? Doesn't he know? Keep him away from the south side. Away from her." Jason didn't care. He had been to many worlds, seen many strange things. He just needed a place to sleep, and maybe a job. That's all. But this city felt different. The air was heavy, the people tense, and when he asked about the desert tents outside the walls, everyone went quiet. One old alien man finally spoke, eyes full of fear. "You stay away from there, human," he said, "especially from the black tent." Jason blinked. "Why?" "She lives there, the silent one, the woman of ash and storm." "A woman?" Jason asked. "Not like you think," the old man whispered. "She was made to destroy. She carries the screams of 1,000 soldiers. No one who enters her tent comes back. She speaks to no one, but we leave her alone. That is our peace." Jason raised an eyebrow. "So why not drive her away?" The old man looked around, then leaned closer. "Because even our strongest fear her, and she wants nothing except silence." That night, Jason could not sleep. The stories played in his mind. Who was she? What kind of power did she hold? He walked through the city, down to the south gate. The guards didn't stop him. They looked away. Outside the gate, the wind blew across the sand. A row of tents stood in the distance, each one empty, except for one. A tall black tent stood alone, half covered in strange symbols. It was lit from inside by a soft blue glow. Jason stared at it. Something pulled at him. Not fear, something else. He took a step closer, then another. The desert was quiet. Even the wind seemed to stop. Jason reached the edge of the black tent. And then, he heard it. A soft voice. Not loud, not angry, but strange, calm, and gentle. It whispered one word. "Jason." He froze. His heart raced. No one should know his name. Not here. Not on this world. He looked around. No one else was there. Again, the voice whispered, "Jason, enter. You are expected." The tent flap moved slightly, as if touched by invisible hands. Jason stared at it. Every part of his body told him to turn back, to run. But his legs moved forward. He pushed the flap open and stepped inside. The inside of the tent was bigger than it looked. Soft lights floated in the air. Strange plants grew in glowing pots. There was no furniture, only cushions and rugs that shimmered like stars. And at the center of it all, she sat, the silent one. Tall, pale, eyes glowing gold. Black markings ran across her skin like rivers. She wore no armor, no weapons, only a soft cloak that looked like it was made of night sky. Jason couldn't speak. She looked at him and smiled slightly. "I was afraid you wouldn't come," she said softly. He blinked. You know me. I've known you for a long time." "That's not possible." She stood slowly. Her presence was calm, but powerful, like the sea before a storm. "Nothing is impossible anymore," she whispered. "You have much to learn, Jason, and I have waited many years to teach you." He took a step back. Who are you?" She looked into his eyes. No hate, no rage, just sadness. "I was made to be a weapon, but I am tired of war. I want peace. I want someone who listens." Jason felt something strange in his chest, a pull. She pointed to a cushion. "Sit, human. We will begin soon." "Begin what?" She smiled. "Your training." The tent flap closed behind him. Outside, the desert wind howled once more. Inside the tent of secrets, Jason stood still, his eyes locked on the alien woman before him. The tent was quiet now, too quiet. Outside, the wind howled and whistled across the sand dunes, but inside this strange space, the silence felt heavy, like a blanket wrapped around his body. The woman, Syria, as he would soon learn, moved with grace, like she was floating rather than walking. Her glowing eyes didn't blink. Her black cloak shimmered like the night sky, and the patterns on her skin shifted slowly, as if they were alive. Jason's throat felt dry. He wanted to speak, to ask her 100 questions, but no words came out. She gestured again to the soft cushion in front of her. "Sit," she said. Her voice was calm, but there was something ancient behind it, a kind of quiet power that didn't need to shout to be obeyed. Jason finally moved and lowered himself onto the cushion. It was warm, even though the air in the tent was cool. The floor beneath him wasn't made of normal fabric. It pulsed gently, like a heartbeat. He looked around the tent again. There were no weapons, no guards, no tech, just strange glowing jars, living plants that swayed slowly without wind, and something that looked like a tiny star floating in a glass bowl. Where am I?" he finally asked. Syria sat down across from him. Her gaze didn't break. "You are inside a place older than your race," she said, "a place forgotten by time. A shelter and a prison." Jason frowned. "A prison. For me," she said. There was no sadness in her voice, just truth. "I'm not here to hurt you," Jason said carefully. "I know," she replied. "That is why you are still alive." He blinked. "Everyone out there is terrified of you. They say you kill anyone who enters this tent." She tilted her head. "Is that what they say?" Jason nodded. "Yes." "Good," she whispered. That single word made Jason shiver. "I need them to fear me," Syria said, "because I do not wish to harm again." Jason's eyes narrowed. "Again, you have killed before." She nodded slowly. "More than you can count." He leaned back slightly. "So, why me? Why call me? Why wait for me?" Syria stood and walked over to one of the floating lights. She touched it with her fingers. It changed color, from blue to violet to gold. "When I escaped my creators," she said, "I came here. Alone. I wanted to vanish. I wanted to stop being a tool. A weapon. But the galaxy doesn't let its monsters rest." Jason said nothing. "Then, I saw a vision. A small thing. A simple path in the dust. And a man. A human. A traveler with no army, no title, no power, only kindness. Only heart." She looked at him now. "I waited," she said, "for you." Jason shook his head. "I'm nobody. I'm not some chosen one." "Perhaps not," she said, "but you are, willing to listen." They sat in silence for a long moment. Then Syria held out her hand. In her palm was a small black orb. It pulsed with dim light. "Take this," she said. Jason reached out and touched it. It felt warm and alive. "What is it?" "A test," she said. "Tonight, you will go into the desert. Alone. You will carry this orb and nothing else." "Why?" "If you live," she said calmly, "then we begin. If you die, then it was not meant to be." Jason stared at her. "You're serious?" She didn't blink. "Yes." He wanted to argue, to say it was crazy, but something inside him, curiosity, maybe even fate, pushed him to stand and nod. "I'll do it," he said. She stepped forward. For the first time, her hand touched his. Her fingers were cold, but her touch was soft. "You may scream," she said, "but do not drop the orb. It is your only light." Jason left the tent before sunset. The desert turned deadly at night. The twin suns vanished below the dunes, and the world turned black and cold. Jason walked far from the city, the orb in his hand glowing faintly. At first, it was peaceful. Then, The whispers began. They were not real words, just sounds that felt wrong, like a voice without a mouth. Shapes moved in the dark, shadows with eyes. Jason tightened his grip on the orb. One shape lunged at him, a creature of dust and bone, with claws like knives. But as it touched the light of the orb, it screamed and burned away. Jason kept walking. His body froze. His breath came in gasps. The cold bit into his skin. He wanted to fall, to sleep, to give up. But the orb pulled him forward, like a warm hand in the dark. Hours passed. The desert became a nightmare. Then, just before dawn, he saw it. The black tent. He stumbled toward it. The flap opened on its own. Syria stood waiting. He fell to his knees. She caught him before he hit the ground. "Good," she whispered. "You are ready now." The warlord's challenge. The morning after Jason survived the desert, the black tent sat quietly under the rising suns. The sands around it were calm, but something had changed. Jason awoke inside, lying on soft cushions, wrapped in strange cloth that felt like silk and heat together. His body was sore. His lips were dry. His muscles ached like he had run for days. He blinked and looked around. Syria sat across from him in silence. Her glowing eyes watched him with quiet approval. "You lived," she said. Jason gave a tired nod. "Barely." "You did not drop the orb," she added. He slowly sat up. Didn't have a choice. That thing was the only light in that nightmare. She stood and walked to him. In her hands, she carried a small bowl of clear liquid. She held it out. "Drink," she said. "It's not water, but it will heal you faster." Jason hesitated for only a second before drinking it. The taste was sharp, like mint and fire, but almost instantly, the pain in his bones began to fade. His breathing grew easier. "Thank you," he whispered. Syria didn't reply. She turned away, her cloak shifting behind her like smoke. Jason watched her for a moment. "So what now?" he asked. "Now," she said, "they will come for you." He frowned. "Who?" Syria looked at him over her shoulder. "The warlord of Corin City. He fears me, but he fears you now too." Jason stood up. "Why me? I'm just a traveler." "You survived me," she said. "No one has done that. Now they think I've chosen you." Jason stared at her, confused. "Is that a problem?" "For them? Yes," she said. "For you? Very much so." Far across the sand, inside the stone towers of Corin City, a massive alien warlord stood on his balcony, looking toward the horizon with cold eyes. His name was Orcs, and his body was covered in armor made from the bones of beasts. His face was scared, and a long metal tail swayed behind him. A guard stood trembling at his side. "You say the human went into the black tent?" Orc growled. "Yes, my lord. He entered at night. And he returned at dawn. Alive." Orc turned slowly. His claws clicked against the stone floor. "This cannot be allowed," he said. "She is the last weapon of the old world." And now she speaks again. He raised his voice. "Send my hounds. Bring me the human's head." Jason and Syria sat beside a small fire inside the tent. Outside, the winds had grown restless again. A storm was building. Jason leaned closer. "If they're coming, should we run?" Syria shook her head. "I do not run. I have done enough of that." Jason sighed. "Then we fight." She looked at him for a long time. "You will not fight. Not yet." "I'm not leaving you alone," he said firmly. A faint smile crossed her lips. "You are brave, but not ready." Suddenly, the wind outside changed. It became sharp, fast. And then, the tent shook. Jason stood up quickly. "What was that?" Syria didn't move. Her voice was calm. "They've arrived." The tent flap burst open. 3 figures stepped in, tall, armored and holding weapons made of black stone and red energy. They looked at Syria first, then at Jason. "The warlord demands the human," one growled. Syria remained seated. Jason stepped forward. "I'm not going anywhere." The nearest soldier raised his weapon, a sharp, crackling blade. But before he could strike, Syria stood, and everything changed. The light in the tent dimmed. The plants stopped swaying. The soft stars in the jars flickered. Syria's eyes began to glow brighter, gold like a rising sun. She spoke only once. "Leave." The soldiers hesitated. Then one laughed. "You are old. You are soft now." Syria raised her hand. The air around her rippled. In a blink, the laughing soldier was thrown across the tent. His weapon shattered, his armor cracked. He hit the far wall with a dull thud and didn't move again. The other two froze. Syria stepped forward slowly. Her voice was still quiet, still calm. "You may leave," she said again, "or you may join him." The soldiers dropped their weapons and ran. Jason stood, stunned. "You didn't kill them," he said. "I told you," she whispered. "I want peace." That night, they sat by the fire again. Jason stared into the flames. "So, now what?" he asked. Syria sat beside him. "The warlord will not stop," she said. "He will send more, stronger ones. He believes I am dangerous. Now he believes you are too." Jason looked at her. "Are you dangerous?" She didn't answer for a while. Then she whispered, "Yes, but only to those who bring war." Jason didn't speak for a while. The fire crackled. The night grew quiet. Then he asked softly, "Why do you care about me?" She turned toward him. Her golden eyes glowed in the dark. "Because you didn't run," she said. "And because I remember a promise, long ago, from a human like you." Jason frowned. "What promise?" She shook her head. "You are not ready to hear it yet." And with that, she stood and disappeared into the deeper shadows of the tent. Jason sat there alone, his mind spinning with questions. Outside, lightning cracked across the sky. The war was just beginning, her broken past. The storm rolled over the desert like a living beast. Thunder cracked in the sky, and flashes of blue lightning lit up the dunes outside the black tent. But inside, everything was calm. The soft hum of floating lights and the quiet breathing of sleeping plants filled the silence. Jason sat by the fire again. He had not slept. Too many thoughts, too many questions. The woman in the black tent, Syria, had saved him. Twice now. Once from the desert, then from soldiers. She had power, strange power, but she didn't use it to kill, only to protect. Still, the question burned in his mind. Who was she, really? And what was the promise she spoke of? He didn't even realize she was standing behind him until she spoke. "You cannot sleep." Jason turned. "Didn't mean to wake you." "You didn't," she said. She sat beside him, her dark cloak moving softly like it was breathing. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Jason turned to her. "You said something last night. About a promise. About a human." Syria didn't answer at first. Her golden eyes stared into the fire. Flames danced in her pupils, but her face remained still. Jason tried again. "Was he someone you knew?" This time, she spoke, slowly. "He was a boy," she said. "A child of Earth, like you." Jason blinked. "You knew him?" "I was not always like this," she whispered. "Not always feared, not always alone." She reached into her cloak and pulled out a small object. Jason leaned forward. It was a tiny rusted badge, a round piece of metal with faded earth writing on it. He could just make out the word, Kadit. Jason's eyes widened. "That's from Earth. Military training badge." Syria nodded. "He gave it to me. A long time ago." Jason stared. "Why?" She looked down. Because I was broken, she said. And he didn't run away. Syria stood and walked to the edge of the tent. Outside, the desert was glowing under the storm. Raindrops fell like falling stars. She opened the flap and let the cool wind rush in. Jason followed her. I was created in a lab, she said. Not born. Designed. Engineered by a race long gone now. They called us Sirene. Living weapons, each of us bonded to destruction. Jason stepped beside her, stunned. There were others like you. She nodded. Hundreds, but they were used up, sent to wars, burned alive, left behind. Her voice shook now, just a little. I was the only one who escaped. I ran, hid in shadows, crossed stars. I killed to survive. Until I landed on a human outpost. A young boy found me. I was half dead, bleeding, wild. Jason whispered. And he didn't kill you. No, she said. He sat beside me, fed me water, shared food, and one night, he gave me his badge. She held it up again. He said, if you wear this, you're one of us now. Jason's heart tightened. I didn't understand then, Syria said. But I never forgot. And after he left, I waited for another like him, one who didn't see a monster. Jason looked at her in the rain. You think that's me? I know it is, she whispered. They stood in silence for a while. Then Jason asked softly, do you miss him? The boy. I remember his kindness, she said. It is the only thing that kept me from turning into a real monster. Jason nodded slowly. Maybe I can help you remember it fully. She smiled faintly. Maybe. But before she could speak again, the ground shook beneath their feet. Far away, a sound echoed across the desert. A horn, deep and thunderous, like the roar of a dying god. Syria turned sharply. They're coming. Jason grabbed his coat. Goo. Not just soldiers, she said, voice low. He's coming himself. Jason frowned. The warlord? She nodded. Warakthul. He thinks I am weak now. He will come to kill me himself. Jason looked worried. Can you stop him? I can, she said, but doing so will wake something I locked away. Jason stared at her. What do you mean? Syria turned toward him, and for the first time, he saw true fear in her eyes. My old self, she whispered. The one built for destruction. I buried her. But if he forces me to fight, she will rise. Inside the tent, Syria knelt before a hidden chest, carved with ancient alien script. She placed her hand on it. It clicked open. Jason saw inside. A suit of armor, unlike anything he'd ever seen. It shimmered with shifting colors. It looked alive. A helmet sat on top, shaped like a screaming bird. Energy pulsed across its surface. This is what I wore, she said. In the old wars. Jason was silent. Once I put it on, she said, I am no longer Syria. I become something else. Something feared across star systems. She looked at him. If I do this, I may not return to who I am now. Jason stepped closer. Then don't. I may not have a choice, she said. But if I fall, you must leave this world. Jason placed a hand on her arm. I'm not going anywhere. She looked down at his hand, then back into his eyes. You are foolish, she said softly. I've been called worse, he smiled. As night fell, Jason stood outside the tent and looked at the stars. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew one thing for sure. Syria wasn't a monster. She was someone who had been broken, but never gave up on hope. And now, he was part of that hope. Behind him, Syria stood in silence, the armor chest still open. She didn't want to become what she once was. But if the warlord crossed the sand tomorrow, she might not have a choice. The mark of bonding. The sky above the desert turned silver before dawn. Jason stood outside the tent, looking out at the glowing horizon. The storm had passed, but the sand still carried a quiet tension, like the world itself was holding its breath. Behind him, the black tent whispered softly in the wind. Inside, Syria prepared for something sacred. She moved slowly, carefully. Her hands traced glowing lines across the floor, forming a strange circular pattern with alien symbols, symbols that pulsed with gold and violet light. At the center of the circle, she placed the small orb Jason had carried through the desert. It now glowed brighter than before. It was time. Jason stepped inside the tent and paused. "What is this?" he asked softly. Syria stood tall in her long cloak. Her golden eyes were brighter than ever. "This," she said, "is the ancient rite of the bond mark, a ritual that links two beings, not just in mind, but in spirit." Jason looked at the glowing symbols on the floor. "Why would you do that?" She walked toward him. "Because the warlord is coming, and I may not be enough. I need someone beside me, someone I trust." Jason swallowed. "I don't know if I'm ready." "You are," she said. "You survived the desert. You didn't run from the shadows. You listened to me, even when everyone else feared me." She stepped closer. "But this is your choice," she added. "Once we bond, your life will never be the same. You'll feel things you don't understand. You'll see parts of me, memories, emotions, pain, and I will see yours." Jason hesitated. The silence stretched. Then, slowly, he stepped into the glowing circle. "I trust you," he said. Syria blinked. For the first time, her lips trembled slightly. "Then kneel," she whispered. Jason knelt in the circle. Syria knelt across from him. She placed her hands on the orb. He did the same. And then the ritual began. A wave of energy surged through the tent. The floor shimmered. The symbols around them spun slowly in the air. Light rose like mist. The orb grew warm under their fingers. Jason felt something deep inside him shift, like a door opening. Suddenly, he wasn't in the tent anymore. He stood in a burning city, watching soldiers fall under the shadow of a great weapon. He saw a younger Syria, armored and furious, unleashing fire and light upon entire armies. He felt her pain, her loneliness, her screams in the darkness, her guilt. Then the scene changed. He saw himself, alone on earth, looking out at stars, wondering if he mattered. He saw his mother's death, the day he left his home, the years of drifting, searching for meaning. Syria was seeing all of it too. Their souls were touching. The bond was forming. Then, light exploded from the orb. Jason gasped and fell back. A sharp burning sensation flared on his chest. He pulled his shirt aside. A glowing mark had appeared on his skin, a symbol made of lines and curves, like the ones on Syria's body. The bond mark. Syria stood, her eyes wide. "It is done," she said. Jason slowly stood up. What does it mean?" "You are linked to me now," she said, "not just as allies, but as one." Jason blinked. "Like a soul bond." She nodded. "It is older than marriage, older than love. It is sacred to my kind." Jason stepped closer. "But does it hurt you?" "No," she said quietly. "It heals me." Later that day, as the sun rose high, Syria began to train Jason. He could feel her thoughts sometimes, small feelings, like ripples in a pond. Fear, calm, memory. She didn't speak much, but he didn't need her to. Their bond carried things words could never say. She handed him a weapon, a strange staff that responded to his touch. "You can control it now," she said, "because you carry my mark." Jason twirled it once. The metal curved like water and shaped into a blade. His eyes widened. "That's incredible." "You're not a warrior yet," she warned, "but you can learn." They trained in silence. Syria moved like a ghost. Jason followed as best he could. She corrected him with a touch or a glance, and every time he moved wrong, He could feel her disappointment in his chest, but also her pride when he got it right. That night, they stood atop a dune together. Far in the distance, dust clouds rose from the desert floor. An army was coming. Jason could feel Sariah's heart beating faster, not fear, but readiness. "They'd march at night?" Jason asked. "They want surprise," she said. "But I am no longer hiding." She turned to him. "Do you feel it?" Jason nodded, like something pulling inside me. "That's the bond," she said. "When I fight, you will feel the echo." Jason swallowed hard. "Will it hurt?" She looked at him carefully. "Yes." He didn't flinch. "Then I'll endure it," he said. As the enemy drew closer, Jason and Sariah returned to the tent one last time. Inside, Sariah placed her hand on the old armor chest, but she didn't open it. Instead, she looked at Jason. "I won't wear it yet," she said. "I will face him first, as I am now, with you beside me." Jason smiled slightly. "Together, then." She nodded, and when they stepped out into the cold desert wind, side by side, the mark on both their bodies glowed the same color. Two lights in the darkness. The uprising begins. The ground trembled. A deep sound, like the growl of a buried beast, moved through the sand. Jason stood at the edge of a tall dune, staring at the dust storm rising in the distance. But it wasn't made by wind. It was made by marching feet, heavy machines, armored creatures, and weapons so large they shook the earth. "They're almost here," he said quietly. Sariah stood beside him, calm and still as stone. "Yes," she said. "He has brought his full army. He fears what we could become." Jason turned to her. "Then he's right to fear us." Her golden eyes met his, and she gave the smallest nod. "But we will not attack first," she said. "We offer peace. One last time." Jason blinked. "You think he'll accept it?" "No," she replied. "But peace is offered not because it will be accepted, but because it shows who we are." The warlord came like thunder. Warwick, towering and monstrous, rode at the front of the army. His armor was blackened steel, fused with bone and energy lines that pulsed like veins. His face was hidden behind a skull mask, and his voice carried across the sands like a growl inside a storm. He raised his weapon, a hammer of plasma and fire. "Sariah of the Cyrenae," he shouted. "Come out, you relic. Face judgment." The black tent stood silent in the rising wind. Warwick raised a clawed hand. "Burn it." But before the first torch could be thrown, the tent flap opened. Jason stepped out first. He wore no armor, only simple clothes and a glowing mark across his chest. Behind him, Sariah followed, tall, unarmored, cloak blowing like dark wings behind her. Her eyes glowed brighter than the sun's. She spoke with calm strength. "I offer peace." The army stopped. Some soldiers trembled. Others stepped back. But Warwick only laughed. "You offer nothing," he said. "You hide behind a human child." Jason stepped forward. "I'm no child." Warwick glared at him. "Then you will die first." Sariah raised a hand. "No." A wave of energy swept across the sand. The sky dimmed. Time seemed to slow. "Touch him," she said, "and I will remind your army why they once fled at my name." The soldiers shifted. Some looked to Warwick with uncertainty. He growled, "You are soft now, a shadow of what you were." Sariah lowered her hand. "Then why are you so afraid?" Suddenly, the air changed. Jason felt it, a pulse in his chest, like Sariah's heart was beating inside him. The bond mark glowed. His vision blurred for a moment. He could feel her tension, her pain, and her sorrow. She didn't want this, but she would not let him die. And Warwick knew it. "Kill the human," Warwick roared. "Break her spirit." The army surged forward. Jason reached for his weapon. The staff Sariah had given him. It formed into a blade in his hand. Sariah stepped in front of him. Then, the battle began. Flashes of light. Screams. The desert turned into a storm of fire and sand. Syria moved like lightning. Fast, silent, graceful. She didn't strike to kill, only to disarm, disable, and defend. Her hands glowed with energy. With a flick of her wrist, she shattered weapons. With a single step, she bent the wind. Jason stayed close, using his staff to protect their sides. He wasn't perfect. Not yet. But every movement from Syria seemed to guide his own. Through the bond, he could feel when to duck, when to strike, when to move. They were two bodies, but one spirit. But Warwick was something else. He walked through fire like a god. When he moved, the sand turned black. His hammer crushed stone and cracked the earth. And now, he moved toward them. Syria met him at the center of the field. "Warwick," she said, voice steady. "Stop this." "There is no stopping," he growled. "Only domination, only power." "You fear what you do not understand," she said. "I fear nothing." He roared, and he charged. Syria met him, bare hands against the hammer. Their clash shook the sky. Jason was thrown back by the shockwave. He hit the sand hard and rolled. His vision swam. Through the bond, he felt it. Syria's pain. She was holding back, still trying not to kill. But Warwick was not. "End it," Jason cried. But she wouldn't. Until Warwick struck her across the chest, and blood spilled across the sand. Jason screamed, and something inside him snapped. The bond mark on his chest flared to life, bright white and violet. Energy surged through his limbs. His blade roared. His eyes glowed. He moved, faster than he ever had, and stood between Warwick and Syria. "You won't touch her again," he said. Warwick laughed. "You think you can stop me, human?" "I'm not alone," Jason said. "I carry her soul now." He attacked. Jason's strikes came wild but powerful. Warwick blocked the first, second, even third, but the fourth sliced across his arm. Sparks flew. Metal cracked. Then Syria stood again. Her eyes were no longer soft. She was awake, all of her. The weapon she once was. The storm they feared. But even now, she didn't strike to kill. Together, they pushed Warwick back. And then Syria whispered one word. "Enough." She touched the ground. A shockwave rippled across the desert. Every soldier dropped their weapon. The machines shut down. The sand turned still. Warwick fell to one knee, panting. Jason stood, chest heaving. Syria stepped toward the warlord, eyes glowing like stars. "This is your last chance," she said. "Leave, or I will burn the sky." Warwick looked up at her, and for the first time, he saw the truth. She was not weak. She was not soft. She had only chosen mercy, and mercy was not weakness. He dropped his hammer. "Stand down," he growled to his army. "We leave." And just like that, the battlefield fell silent. Later that night, under the stars, Jason sat by the fire inside the tent. Syria joined him, a cut on her cheek and tired eyes. "You didn't kill him," Jason said. "No," she replied. "You could have." "I know." Jason looked at her. "Why?" She was quiet for a long time. Then she whispered, "Because I still remember the boy who said, 'Monsters can become more.'" Jason looked at her glowing eyes and realized something. She had changed him, but he had changed her too. The woman they feared. The desert was quiet. For the first time in many years, no war machines moved across the sand. No horns echoed in the wind. No armies waited at the edge of the horizon. The black tent stood alone once again, like a quiet monument to everything that had happened. But something had changed. Inside, Jason sat by the fire. He stared into the flames, replaying the battle in his mind. His hands were still sore. His chest still burned from where the bond mark had glowed. He had never meant to be a warrior. He didn't want to fight. But he had. For her. Behind him, Syria moved in silence, placing items back in their proper places, small glowing orbs, ancient scrolls, weapons from a past she didn't wish to return to. Jason finally spoke. So, it's over? Syria paused. The battle is over. But peace is never certain. He turned toward her. Will Warrak come back? She shook her head. No. He saw the truth. He saw that mercy was stronger than destruction. He will tell others. Jason let out a breath. Good. He stared at her. She didn't look as tired as before. She looked calm. Whole. Syria, he asked softly, what happens now? She walked to the edge of the tent and opened the flap. Outside, the stars glittered above the desert. Soft wind brushed over the sand, gentle this time, like the world was finally breathing easy. I have spent years hiding, she said. Years trying to forget who I was. Years fearing myself. Jason stepped beside her. And now? I still carry power, she whispered. I still carry memory. But now, I carry something else. She looked at him. Hope. Jason smiled gently. You gave me that, she added. He looked away, shy. I just listened. She nodded. And that was enough. The next morning, people came. Not soldiers. Not spies. Civilians. Traders. Children. Aliens from nearby villages. They came quietly, walking across the sand, unsure but curious. They had seen the sky light up during the battle. They had felt the earth shake. And then, silence. Peace. Now, they wanted to know. At first, they stood at a distance from the black tent. No one dared to get close. But then, the flap opened. Jason stepped out. Behind him, Syria followed. And the people stared. No one ran. No one screamed. They looked at her, the woman they had feared, and saw not a monster, but a protector. A quiet voice came from a small girl in the crowd. Is she a queen? Jason smiled. She's something better, he said. She's the reason we're all still alive. The girl took a step forward. Syria bent to her level. The child reached out and gently touched the glowing mark on Syria's arm. It's pretty, she whispered. Syria nodded. It's a bond. Like family. Stronger than that, Syria said. It means I protect. Always. Later that night, a fire was lit outside the tent. Not for battle, but for peace. Jason sat beside Syria. Around them, villagers told stories, sang songs, and shared food. Even some of Warrak's former soldiers sat nearby. No longer enemies, but guests. Jason looked at Syria. She wasn't smiling, but her face was softer now. Her eyes held light. Not just the glow of power, but the warmth of being seen and accepted. You're not hiding anymore, he said. No, she said. I'm done hiding. He nodded. Then what will you do? She looked at the stars. I will walk, she said, from world to world. Not as a weapon, not as a ghost, but as a witness, a voice, maybe even a healer. Jason was quiet. Will you come with me? She asked softly. He looked at her, surprised. You want me to? I need someone to remind me who I am, she said, and someone who can speak to those who still fear me. Jason chuckled. I've been worse at jobs. Syria extended her hand. Jason took it. Before dawn, they left the tent behind. They didn't pack much, just what they needed. As they walked across the sand, the first rays of sunlight touched the world in gold. And far behind them, the black tent began to dissolve. Slowly, silently, its cloth turning to mist, its frame sinking into the sand. A symbol of a past that no longer controlled her. A child from the village watched the tent disappear. She whispered to her mother, Where is she going? Her mother smiled and said, "Wherever people need someone brave." In time, they would tell stories of her, not as a monster, not as a weapon, but as a guardian. A woman once feared, now followed. And beside her, always, the human who had stepped into her tent when no one else dared. The bond between them would become legend. And across the stars, whenever darkness rose, people would whisper, "She's coming," the woman they feared, and the human who walks with her